Give him a fastball special, Pete. Dorkside Toys blows my frickin' mind. Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Today, let's take a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary X-Men Marvel's Colossus and Marvel's Juggernaut. I'm legally bound to call them Marvel's Colossus and Marvel's Juggernaut. Now, I'm heading out to a couple of Comic-Cons next week. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, so I'm recording a bunch of stuff all at the same time, and it just so happens that I am so far behind with Marvel Legends. There's just been so much stuff, so many 2-packs, so many singles, and this is just the beginning. I'm gonna hit this, and I'm kind of excited because I like opening Marvel Legends stuff. Plus, Juggernaut looks like a good upgrade to the one I already have, and Colossus, it's Colossus, or Marvel's Colossus. Looking at the packaging, it's your 80th anniversary stuff. It's got the fiber-looking black background with the red outline and the X-Men logo in the window where you can see all the figures. Warning, right there on the front, they don't want you missing that. And I grab it, and this is a heavy box. These are both pretty big figures. Hell, one of them was a Build-A-Figure. So the box is big, the box is hefty, just like you would expect it to be if it was filled with, you know, Colossus and Juggernaut. On the side, some nice comic art from some old school Juggernaut. On the back, Colossus, Juggernaut, bios for both, a comic book cover from back in the day with Colossus versus Juggernaut. Down here, even more warnings in other languages. On the other side, comic art of Colossus. On top, a very fancy looking Marvel logo in gloss black on top of matte black. It's so choice. So, I'm gonna get this open, see what's going on with these guys. Good grief. Oh, did he actually have a tie? Because Juggernaut does. Like, he needs any more help to be held in this plastic blister. Yeah, I was real worried about him moving. I need a nap. And look at these two big guys. Looking at Juggernaut first, simply because I've messed with this base figure before. This was a Build-A-Figure a couple of years ago in an X-Men series. There are changes here though, so it's not all just, well, here's Juggernaut, whatever. Because the base body they use for Juggernaut, it's big, it's thick, it's bulky, it's appropriate for Juggernaut. You have all the muscle definition, you have the proper boots with the boot cuff up atop. The soles are kind of faked. You get to the middle and it's flat, but you know what? It's good. You don't care much when Juggernaut's stomping on your ass. The bands on the arm are separate pieces, and that's why I think a lot of people thought, including me, thought that this would eventually be a Hulk sculpt, but they didn't go that direction. So there's no reason for these to be separate, but it does come into play here in a minute during something else. Oh, and with it being a Build-A-Figure, you're still going to get that propensity for it to come apart when you get too crazy with it. Like I noticed here, you can still take it apart at the waist. And let's go ahead and get it out of the way because this is one of the big factors of deciding which one is going to go on my shelf, even though I already know just looking at it right here. On the Build-A-Figure, you have more of a brownish color. It's darker, it's more modern, or at least that's how I look at it. This 2-pack Juggernaut, more reddish color. I feel like this is more classic. This is how I remember him when I was a kid reading comics. Same bands, same body, same sculpt. This originally came with a belt, but I never put it on because I didn't care for it. It was kind of just stuck there. I never felt it looked natural, so I never put it on. And it's gone. I don't know where it went. And it looks like Hasbro went that same direction by not even adding the belt to the 2-pack. But the biggest difference here is in the helmet. On the Build-A-Figure, it has a texture to it. It looks like he's been running through way too many walls. Plus the shape is a little bit more pointy. At the top, it doesn't flare out as much. But the texture here matched the bands, and then even the knuckle dusters. With this new Juggernaut, we get a more oval shape to the top. It's flared out more. It feels like it fits the body better. And again, it feels more like my Juggernaut. They also smoothed it out to give it that more classic look, but they didn't smooth out the arm or the wristbands. I would have liked to have seen these, since they're separate pieces and all, to match this, to give it an overall more classic look. But it's way less noticeable than it was on the original because of all this texture, and your eyes are automatically drawn to that. That's why I had taken that off and putting the Marvel Select head on there, which I feel is, again, better shaped. It flares out more. It looks like it's attached to the body, and it's not quite so full of texture. But the 2-pack Juggernaut, it doesn't flare out as much, but it matches that shape a little bit better. On the Build-A-Figure, there were eyes and pupils and iris and everything in there. It looked like a dude under the helmet. With this new release, we get kind of the same thing, but the eyes, there we are. The eyes are widened out, more of a supernatural feel to it. But I've noticed, at least through the camera, when I get it back a bit, it blacks out inside the eyes where you can only see that silver of the eye itself, and I kind of like that look. But then there is Colossus, and at least from Hasbro, this is the Colossus we've been waiting for. Just excellent sculpting detail, muscles. The arms are a reuse, I think, from that more modern Colossus we did get, but they matched up the torso and then the legs perfectly with it. Have the weird thigh-high knee pad things that he wore back in the day. They're attached to the kneecap part, so when you bend the leg, they kind of stick out, but it's not bad. He's shoveling snow. But just like that classic comic look, the contrast of smoothness to the uniform parts, well, you can see muscle definition and all that, but it's a nice contrast against the ultra detail of the metal body. I guess you could say for sure he has buns of steel. I'm sorry. I've seen people comment that it's not exactly Jim Lee and it's not exactly classic, but I've seen people use this in their classic displays with their Jim Lee stuff. I think Hasbro went for more of an amalgam of his looks from classic appearances. And yes, I call the mid-90s classic at this point. I'm pretty sure Hasbro will eventually release one with a different belt, different bracers. Hell, I still want an Astonishing, which is essentially this, but with the flares down, different belt, different kind of leggings. But it's Colossus. I'll take any and all, just like Logan, just like Deadpool, just like Cyclops, just give them to me. But I do notice that the arms look super thick down below the elbow. I like the bicep, how it fits with the rest of the body, but then for some reason it just seemed like ba-toom. There's no way the arm tapers down enough to go into this hand realistically. You can kind of change up that look because the belt floats, so if you want, like, old school Colossus, here you go. Oops, nope, not quite that high. You raise up the belt. If you want more modern times, you bring it down. Speedo look. And also looking from here all the way up to the flares, much like Nightcrawler, this is a separate piece inlaid into the torso. So if they did want to do that astonishing look eventually, they can just switch this out without the shoulder flares. The likeness of the head just continues on up. I mean, this is Colossus. It's got that just stoic look. No detail to the hair for his buzz cut. I always remember looking at that in comics and going, that looks weird, but awesome. Just a little bit of black paint to outline the eye itself, just to bring that out. And speaking of the silver, it's reflective, but I feel like it's a little bit bright. It is a nice reflective silver, especially coming out of a factory. I expected more of a gray. Going over articulation for Juggernaut, there is a hinge going up into a ball in the head, but because of the helmet, you're not going to get as much movement as you think you would, but you do get more than you expect. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can look up, can look down, even a little bit of tilt. Then of course swivel. The shoulder hinges up to about right there. Swivels around. Swivel at the bicep. Elbow, not quite 90, but man, this is a bulky guy. Hinge. Swivel. Hinge at the torso goes forward, arcs back, swivel at the waist. Ball comes out to the hip. You can raise it up to about right there. Back, out. Not the greatest. The thigh swivel actually follows the musculature of the legs, so it's a little bit hidden. Single knee, not quite 90 there either. Hinge at the ankle goes back, not a lot of forward, and then forward facing pin for some rocker. For Colossus, there's your hinge, there's your ball going up into the head, can look up, bury the chin, a little bit of tilt, yet. Swivel, hinge at the shoulder comes up to about 90, rotates around, and this is a softer material, but not the softest in the world, so it does punch the arm out just a little bit. Swivel at the bicep. Single elbow, again, big bulky guy, not quite 90. The bracer is a separate piece, slides up and down on top of a wrist that hinges and swivels. Hinge at the torso, kicks forward. Ooh, kicks forward a lot. Arcs back, swivel behind the belt. Ball hip comes up to there. Back, out. Probably better out than a lot of little guys. Swivel at the thigh, not quite hidden where I thought it would be in one of these lines. It's kind of in between. Double knee kicks his buns of steel. Yeah, I made that joke again, shut up. Hinge at the ankle goes back. What's with these feet? Those look weird. A little bit of forward, and then forward facing pin for rocker. For accessories, Juggernaut comes with 2 fists. Those pop out. I guess if you wanted to, you could take the bracer off. Yeah, that may be a custom job later on. And then he also has 2, well, kind of a gripping hand and then a splayed out hand. Get these hands. On those, the bands are separate pieces there too. Then you pop pop off the head, and you can put on a bruised and battered Cain Marko head. I like the look here. There's no neck, but as bulky as this bastard is, I expect there to be no neck. But then the paint job on it, I like the reflectiveness of the eye. They went kind of metal like they've been doing lately. But then this bruised part, it's puffy, it's got a kind of busted lip there. But on top of that, he also has a ripped open helmet where you can tell that that damage was done. It just kind of sits on there. Actually, there's some lengthy pegs in there that do kind of clamp down on that side of the head. So you can get kind of a ripped open look, even though I don't think of Juggernaut's armor being able to be ripped up this easily. It's a nice effect. They even added some silver here where you can see the exposed metal under the red paint job. And then for as smooth as the regular head is, this one's got some texture to it, like it's been beat on, like it took some work to blow out this side of the helmet. And then Colossus, besides his just cranked up hands right here, you can pull those off, and be careful because the band comes off. You don't want that getting lost somewhere behind a shelf or something. He also comes with 2 fists, just like any good bruiser should. Like I talked about the forearms being thick, the fists accentuates that even more. The thickness here makes the hands look tiny compared to the rest of the body. Ooh, and as I go to stand him up, I notice there's just a little bit of wiggle room in the hips. It doesn't stop him from standing up, but you'll notice it. Height-wise, Juggernaut is 8.5 inches tall. Here he is with that Build-A-Figure Juggernaut. Same base, same body, same size. But I feel like this helmet looks a lot more natural than this one. And also more evil, really, with those shined out eyes. Here he is with the remnants of the Toy Biz Juggernaut. I don't remember what I was doing back in the day. I think I was trying to shorten his arms because, man, they hung down way too far. And unfortunately, this is all I have left of the Marvel Select Juggernaut. When I first bought it, the arm had sheared off because it was stuck. And then I took the head for the Marvel Legends Juggernaut, and then I lost the body somewhere. I've been meaning to pick up one of the knockoffs that are on eBay right now, but I just haven't done that yet. But Juggernaut is definitely a good size, especially compared to other evil mutants, or misunderstood mutants, however you want to look at it. And then Colossus stands at about 7.5 inches tall. Here he is with the original Toy Biz Colossus that has seen better days, and then the last Hasbro Colossus. I don't care for this modern look, but man, that beard makes that figure. I don't have the astonishing version of this. I did a trade and the guy backed out on me. I will find you someday, but you can tell that this is definitely Toy Biz with its small little shoulders compared to the biceps, the high crotch, and then the dull gray for the body, although I do think the astonishing version is closer to this silver. Now it looks like the biceps are reused between these two, but let's take a look at this, see what's going on. Okay, the bracers don't come off. What I think happened here is they used this Colossus arm all the way down to the bracer, but then resculpted it and then somehow messed up the thickness by just adding, because look at this. I mean, it's just crazy how thick this is. You take the bracer off, you put the arm on, it looks like he's wearing a metal sleeve. And then here he is with the Marvel Legends Omega Red and the Marvel Select Colossus. Some people use this in their 6-inch displays. I've always felt it's too large, but it's definitely a good looking figure. And to get all customizing on you again, you'll notice that the Select bracers are actually thinner than the Legends bracers. I've actually seen people swap out the Select arms either from the elbow down or the bicep down with the Legends, and it looks pretty good. I may try that. If I do give that a try, I'll cut that in here in a minute, but I'm gonna finish this review first. Here he is with some Marvel Legends classic X-Men like Sunfire, Cyclops, Nightcrawler. Back then, I don't think he was this big and bulky, but it still works. He looks much more at home with 90s characters like Archangel and Bishop. Okay, technically, even though you haven't seen it yet, I've finished the review that will come after this with a stock Colossus, but I thought I'd try a little bit of customizing to maybe fix a couple of the nitpicks I have with it. I've taken the Marvel Select arm from the bicep swivel all the way down to the fist and just stuck it on here. Surprisingly, the peg actually fit. It doesn't just fall off, it's on there. You'll notice a little bit of difference in the silvers, and then of course you have this glossy red gauntlet, but it does thin down the forearm, makes it look more natural. The Select Colossus also has a smaller bicep, and is this tricep? Whatever this muscle is back here. Over here, it's just bulge. It doesn't quite fit to the shoulders. See the gap right there and right there? What I'm gonna go back and attempt to do is boil and pop, which is boiling some water. I prefer the water method. Heating up the joints, pulling them apart, putting the pins back in. I'm gonna try to put the Legends bicep back on here, and then the Select from the elbow down, see what that does. Also with the feet, the Legends one is big and chunky and thick. I don't know, it's weird. Here's the Marvel Select foot on there. Again, the peg does fit, it stays on, it moves. But you can see a difference in the red. Even though it's more naturally shaped, It's a little bit long, and then it hangs off the back a little bit. It's just a little too much. I can live with the Legends feet. I'm going to put that Legends foot back on this side. I'm going to keep playing with this. Using just the Marvel Select from the elbow down, here's the Legends bicep back on there. It does thin it down a little bit. It's a smaller wrist than this side. It does add some length to the overall arm. In fact, I think this swap adds more length than using the whole Select arm. Also, you end up with some gap right here where you can see the flatness of the inside disc. Oddly enough, the peg fits right through the hole on this arm. And now that I have the Legends bicep back on here, you can see that there's gap there too. So what I think I'm going to do is put everything back and try both Select arms and see what the overall look is. Here it is with both Marvel Select arms from the bicep down. In these bright ass lights, you can kind of see a difference in the sheens here. Until I actually got in here, I thought, man, that's the same color. In a normal display, normal conditions, normal lighting, it's much harder to tell the difference. And I've let it cool down this time. When I showed it a second ago, which was actually about an hour ago my time, it had some gap here, but it was still hot too, so it's now formed back a little bit. It's nice and tight on there. And then honestly, you get a little bit more range of movement. It comes up to 90, the original arm didn't. So you get a couple of degrees. The hands come down a little further now, past the crotch, but a little creative posing on the shelf, and it's not so noticeable. I don't know, this is probably not everybody's shot of vodka, but I'm gonna leave it on for a few days, see how I feel. And if not, I'll swap the old arms back on there. So at the end of the day, a very big, bulky set. It's two big bruisers, and they're both fantastically done. Yes, it's an upgrade to Juggernaut, but it gives classic fans something to put on their shelf. You may have not been happy or passed on the other Juggernaut because of its more modern leanings. Come back around, here's your classic reddish, brownish color with the more smooth dome, more classic shaped. But then with Colossus, yes, if you're OCD about every little nitpicky detail like the belt or the bracers or the boots, it may not fit in where you want it to, but at least the belt's a separate piece, the bracers are a separate piece. They gave some options to either re-release this later in more accurate details or customizers to go to town on it. Either way, it's a classic inspired Colossus finally for the shelf. I'm gonna need another one for the Jim Lee display, one to put with my giant size X-Men, and then I guess I'll take an extra Juggernaut to paint gray for that time he was in the X-Men. Bottom line, it's always good to add Marvel Legends to the shelf, and for characters like this, where it's childhood on top of teenage years, on top of adult years, and even now, you can't go wrong with Juggernaut and Colossus. The big guys may not be as articulated as the little guys, but they're not meant to be. In the comics, they're always portrayed as kind of, here comes the big lumbering tank. Like the old saying goes, you cannot stop the Juggernaut. And Colossus is pretty tough to stop too. So if you enjoyed the review, comment, like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.